Hello everyone, how are you doing? Welcome back to the video or the day 21. Today we are going to end the DOM module. We have learned about the introduction to DOM, how to query DOM, how to manipulate DOM, about JavaScript events, also a lot of advanced tips and tricks about DOM manipulation and how to take care of DOM when you're working in Scale. Now, if I want to end this module, the best way to end this module would be by doing a project. So today we are going to do a deep down by solving a use case. So in a while, I'll be explaining what we'll be building and how we are approaching that particular problem solving. But before I do that, the request would be if you like 40 days of JavaScript, please be with me, support me, subscribe to the channel, give a like, post a comment, let me know. All right, so without any further delay, let us first understand what are we aiming to build today. So today's goal is to build a quiz app. Most of you know what quiz means, right? There will be questions, and for each of the questions, there will be multiple choices, and there will be a correct answer. You select the correct answer, you get a point. You don't select a correct answer. If you give a wrong answer, you don't get the point. And at the end of the quiz, your all the points get accumulated. That's how you get a score, right? So that's how the quiz works. We are going to build a quiz application. Now, our task for today is to complete the design of a quiz application. First, we'll think about the look and feel, how this experience of user will be there on this application. We'll be talking about that, and then we'll be trying to create the HTML CSS accordingly, then develop the quiz application whatever we envision with the following features. We will show random questions for the quiz. For example, you're taking the quiz for the first time, you will get a set of questions, but you take the question next time, the order of the questions will be purely random because we don't want anyone to cheat, so that they know the answer of it. The first answer will be A, second answer will be B, third answer will be C. Instead of giving that opportunity, we'll be randomizing the entire question flow. Then we'll have a timer. For example, if you're giving a question for a quiz and if you're expecting an answer from the user, you cannot give the entire day for the user to answer. So we'll time box it with some time, let's say 15 seconds time. Within 15 seconds, user has to select one answer for that particular question. After 15 seconds, a next button will appear so that user can navigate to the next question. And if user selecting an answer for a question, say this is the answer. If the answer is right, we'll tell your answer selection is right for this question. If the selected answer is wrong, the system will automatically tell which one was the right answer so that user can also learn from it, right? And within 15 seconds time, if user is not selecting anything, system will automatically prompt and say, hey, this is the right answer, so that you can learn, for the next time. So these are the things that are pointed over here. When user select a wrong answer, the right answer should be shown, and at the end of it we will also show the result, in a sense, okay, how many score that you got from the entire quiz thing. And the result will also show what is the highest score somebody has got by taking this quiz and what is your score compared to that highest score. So it means that if some user has taken the quiz and say got 32 points, that's the highest point, and now next time you got 28, it will show you got 28, but taking this quiz somebody has already got 32. Do you want to chase that, right? So gamification of the entire thing, and there should be a way to restart this application once we show the result. So these are the goals of this particular quiz application, and this quiz application we are going to develop by using most of the things that we have learned in the DOM lesson. But you also have to remember that before DOM lesson, we have learned many things for the logic building, for problem solving, etc. All those things are also going to be utilized in this project. So our learning is always incremental. Some of the non-functional requirements are, we want to create a good look and feel. I'm not a great designer, but I'll try to make sure that it is at least looking little bit better. You can always make it better with your own CSS skill. Optimal usage of timer, because we are giving that 15 seconds, right? The time boundary within which you have to give the answer. If you don't give the answer, system will tell you this is the right answer. So how can we manage this kind of timer well in the JavaScript application? And then we'll try to keep the code cleaner, right? So this is what is our objective today. I hope you have fun learning it, you have fun doing this project. Please code with me, and then after you finish the coding, again go back to what you have coded and try to improvise, try to add some new feature to it, so that you know, like, okay, how to do incremental things on a feature, right? So that will be really useful to you. And I have also given you an assignment. I'm going to talk about that assignment towards the end of this video. You have to do that assignment. That's another project that you have to develop ground up. All right, excited? Let's get started. So here is a very simplistic design of our quiz app. Let me explain like what are the elements that we are thinking about as part of this design. The first thing is this is our area in which we will have both questions and answers. Under this area, there are again multiple sections that we have thought about. There is an area where we will be showing the timer. You remember the 15 seconds timer? So let's put a boundary over here. And then there is another area where we'll be showing the question. So here is another boundary. And then there is an area where we are going to give the options, the answer options for the user to select. Once user selected an answer, we will bring a next button over here. So there is another area. So once user selected an answer and do the next question will appear. So instead of Q1, this particular question, there will be Q2, the next question, and the timer gets restarted for that question. Again, user select an option, the next will appear, and user can navigate to the next question. Like that, once user navigated to all the questions, at the end of it, we are going to show the result of it. So it means that we have to have some area, maybe over here, where we will be able to show the result dynamically. Or this could be a div that might come somewhere here itself and be visible only when the result is available. This is how I can think of. So if I just mark them, I can call this outer one as a quiz box, then this one a timer, then this one a question. So these are the different sections that I'll be creating in my UI. And this one I can call as an options. Then there will be a dynamic next button. So let's take it as a next button. And then I'm telling that dynamically there will be a result section also. So there will be something called a result, right? So this many section is what I am planning to create. There might be more, or I might discard something as and when I proceed. But for now, imagine that there is a body, HTML's body. Inside that there will be a div called quiz box. Inside this div, there will be a timer div, there will be a question div, there will be an options div, there will be a button called next button, and there could be a result div, right? This is what the structure that I can think of for now. And then I can put a bit of styling to make them look like how I'm envisioning over here, and then look into my script to make sure that how to deal with each of the interaction and the show and hiding of each of the element based on the use case that we have in hand, right? So if you have understood this, I would say any project that you get in your hand, any use case that you get in your hand, take a pen and paper or a tool like Excalibur or any tool. Try to draw this, like what you want to build, how the look and feel of that is going to be. Once you satisfy that, okay, this is what the look and feel is going to be, the next thing that you want to do is to break that thing, your look and feel, into multiple smaller chunks so that you can start building things in much more reusable way. In case of React, these smaller chunks will be each of the components. In case of plain JavaScript, when you're dealing with the DOM, each of these things will be your HTML elements. Because once you have the structure using these HTML elements, like you have a quiz box, inside that you have a timer, you have a question, you have options, you have next button. Now, as you have the structure, it is just about making sure that dynamically what kind of interaction they put on each of the structure and what kind of details and the data that will be inserting, or you'll be showing, hiding, toggling all this thing with the CSS and the class list. We have learned all these things, right? Using DOM manipulation, using advanced DOM techniques. That's what we'll be doing now while doing this project. Hope it makes sense. Now let's go back to the code. First in the HTML, let's start creating this structure that we have just now discussed. So I have a folder called day 21, and inside day 21, this readme.md file contains the project requirement that we have seen already. There is an index.html file and there is an index.js file. The index.js file is pretty much empty. We are going to fill it up. Index.html file is also comparatively empty. It has a title called quiz app. It has a link to a style sheet called style.css file, which is very much empty except this one style. And then it's loading a script called index.js file we have seen just now. It's an empty script. Now, first thing first, we are not going to worry about the script much. We are going to worry about the structure of our quiz application and then the styling about it. So what we have decided that we'll be creating a div and we'll call this div as quiz box. So let's add a class called quiz-box so that we can style this entire quiz box as well and all the elements inside that as well. Now inside quiz box, we have decided that we will have a timer, a div, a div for questions, a div for options, a button called next button, and a div for result. So let's create them. So let's first create the timer div. Whenever you're working with HTML, try to use and utilize the emits, because that way it will be very faster. So for example, if I want to create a div with an ID, I'll just do div pound sign and the name of that particular ID, let's say timer, and press enter, is going to create a div with an ID timer. Isn't it awesome? So utilize some of these things. If you're new to emits, I have a video, go ahead and check it out. You'll learn a lot of emits. Similarly, I'm going to create one with questions, div pound questions. That's going to create a questions. Let's create one for the options, the answer options. So I have a div now with an ID options, and also added a class called options. We'll be adding things, the classes and all going forward. Then we want a button, right? So let's add a button with an ID, say next hyphen btn, next button. This is my next button. We'll tell this is like next question. The text of the button we can give as next question. And finally, we'll have a placeholder div right now, which will show the result. Okay, so let's do div pound result dot result. So that creates a div with an ID result and also a class name called result. I like to use these shortcuts a lot. So this is what the structure of it. If I go to the UI right now, I won't see much other than this button, because each of these divs are empty and I have not added any style. Okay, let's put a few things for this div. For example, we are going to start this timer always with 15 seconds. To start with, you can change it to 30 seconds, your choice. So let's add a text call, initial text call 15 with an emoji, this clock emoji over here. For the questions, we will be loading these questions from somewhere. For now, we'll be loading these questions from, let's say, JSON file or a hard-coded array. In future, these questions might come by making a call to an API. That API can retrieve that from a MongoDB. You're going to see all those things, all those projects when I getting into the next module, which is the asynchronous JavaScript module. But for now, it will be the local JavaScript file. But let's still give a loading indicator so that initially shows loading for a fraction of a second, and then the question comes up. You might not even see this loading because we are doing everything very locally. Now, these option divs or the answers will be completely empty right now, because dynamically we are going to add the answers to it. This button is saying next questions. This is a placeholder div. We are not thinking about it right now at all. So at this stage, if I go live and try to see what is there in the UI, we will see an output like this. You have that 15 I have added for the timer, then the loading and the button called next questions. However, if you go ahead and inspect this, you will be seeing this entire DOM got created, whatever is there in our index.html file. So far, great. Now let's put some styling to the quiz box, some styling to this timer, maybe the questions, options, everything, so that the UI start looking a little bit decent. And if you remember, we already have a style.css file attached to the index.html. So you can go to the style.css file and start doing our CSS. First, let's put some styling to the body so that there is a background color and our quiz box comes and sits in the middle of the body, right? So let's do some style for the body. Let's give a background color, a dark background color, the foreground color, a whitish color. I can go for a flex layout over here with the content justified in the center and the items are aligned at the center. Let me put a height of 100 VH, and let me make sure that there is no external margin has got added. There is no padding also got added. Okay, so this is what the style of the body. So with this, now I am getting a darkish background, and the UI, the box already started sitting in the middle. That's what I'm seeing over here, right? This is the quiz box. If I'm selecting, it started in the middle, but I still need to now put some style in the quiz box so that it has its different background color. As you can see over here, the background color of the body and the background color of this quiz box is a bit different. There is a rounded corner and all the styles. So let's achieve those as well. So for that, index.html has a div with a class called quizbox. So I can define the style using .quizbox. And over here, first provide a background color, then can provide a padding of 3 pixel so that the elements inside quizbox having some amount of space from its border. Then do a rounded corner with border radius, give a width and the max width of that particular box. I can provide a text align to make it center all the text, and to make it little bit look better, I can provide a box shadow. So I provided a box shadow. So if I go to the UI right now, yeah, I can see it distinguishedly that there is a quiz box. And right now it also responsive. That's what we see. Now the next thing is about the questions, where the question will come, right? So I think one change that I can do over here, instead of div, I can actually make it like a heading, right? Because there is only one question coming, and make it as a singular. Instead of calling it a question, so I can call it as question. So there is a H2 with question on single text of question. For that, I can just provide some margin so that once the options or the answers come below the questions, there is a gap between the questions and the answers. Now, the next thing is the options. This is a div, and dynamically, we are going to add four answers, the four choices or the four options for each of the questions. So, those things will be added dynamically. So, we have to provide certain styling to these options, maybe a layout, a flex layout, making sure that all the answers are appearing as a column, one after another one, giving some gap between them, giving some margin. So all these things that I can actually specify now. It has a class called options. So I'll copy this, go to my style.css file, say dot options, and over here I can do display flex. Flex direction is column. I can provide a gap between the elements, say 10 pixel, and this overall div I can provide a margin bottom so that anything else comes in after that, there will be certain kind of space, right? What can come after that? We can see that after options we already have a next button. So it means that from all the options and this next button is having a space between them. Okay, so for next button there is an ID, so I can take this one and let me create some style for that. So these are the style for the next button. Very simple. Create a background color, given some kind of curvy edge, rounded corner, the cursor is pointer, font size, etc. It's very simple thing. And the other thing that is left out right now is this timer. So timer also you can style, but before that, let's see the UI so far. Yeah, it's looking almost decent, right? If there is a question comes, it will come over here. If there is an option comes, it will come over here. The next question also looking good. We can now style this particular timer a little bit. Let's see. So this timer, we are going to style. It has an ID called timer. We can take that and let's put some style, a bigger font size, giving a margin and making the color in a different color so that it stand out, on top of the darker color. So now if I see the UI, this is much better. So the basic structure of the UI, basic styling is already in place. Now the next thing that we will be doing is to create a data structure of the quizzes, which will have the question, and for the question we'll have answer, and we will also tell through the data structure that what is the right answer. And then the data structure will put somewhere, maybe as an array, and then read it and then try to load it on our UI, a question and the list of options or the answer for that. But one thing, as per our use case, is like we have to randomize it. It means that every time the question should not appear in the same sequence. So it means that we have to take the data structure and make sure that we have to put some kind of randomness into it and then only push it to the UI so that every time the question come to the UI, they are in a random sequence, right? So at this time, the best place to keep our data structure for the quiz data in the index.js file itself. So let's define a quiz data array. We'll call it as quiz data itself, and it will be an array. Inside that, we can define the structure of each of the quizzes. So each of the quizzes will have a question. We'll put some question over here, and then it will have the answers or the options. You can say answer or you can say options. Now there will be multiple options that user will be selecting from. So this will be an array. And then you also want to say which one is the correct answer among these options, right? So you'll have something called correct, which will say the index inside this options array, saying that, okay, this is the correct answer. So if I say 1, if there are 4 such answers inside this options array, I'm saying that the second one inside this options array is the correct answer, because array index starts from 0. Correct one means the second one, right? Let's take one simple question, and I'm sure that all of you know the answer for this. The question is, what does DOM stands for? And let's have few options. So I have 4 options. One is document order model, document object model, data object model, direct object management. We know that DOM stands for document object model. So here the second option is the correct answer. That's the reason I'm given the value of the correct is 1. So 0, 1 is the document object model. So this is the structure of my each of the quiz. Now taking this structure, let us add another 2 or 3 questions so that when we take the quiz at the end, it looks like a little bit more real. So I have added two more questions. Which method selects by ID? Get element by ID, get query selector all, get element, or get elements by class name. You all know it is get element by ID. So the correct answer is the 0th index of the option array. That's what you're saying. The next question is which event fires on input change? Whether it's a click event, submit, change event, or key down. Of course, it's a change event and it is in the 0, 1, 2 second index. So the correct answer is 2. So I have a quiz data right now with 3 questions and I have the options for those questions, also telling which one is the correct answer. Now taking this one ahead, I'm going to plot this in the UI structure that we have just now created. Let's do that. So as we have this quiz data, the next thing that we want to do is to create our questions, which will be the randomized form of this quiz data. We spoke about the randomizing part already, why we need it. So let's create questions. Let's not modify the original quiz data. Let's clone or create a copy of the quiz data. How do we do it? The simplest way of doing it using the spread operator. We have learned that in our array session. So we'll have the quiz data and we have created a copy of it. Then we want to sort this particular array of quiz data based on a random sequence. So for that, you know that sort method takes a comparator function. So you can write the comparator function in terms of an array function. And in this case, the comparator function which decides the order, the sorting order, our sorting order will be a random order. For that, we can do math.random and take a deviation of the offset. So right now I have a questions variable which holds an array, and every time the value of the questions will be a random sequence of the quiz data array. Great. After taking these questions, it's time that on the index.html, whatever the structure that we have defined, each of these things are having ID. We start reading them into our JS file so that we can act on them and we can play with them. So for example, if I need a timer, I will say const timer element equals to document.get element by ID and pass the timer ID. What will be the case if I need this, if I need the access to this question, this particular h2, I'll say const question element equals to document.get element by ID and pass this question to it. Here is a spelling mistake. I have corrected it now. Okay. So like that, going to index.js file, I have now queried each of this element. For example, question element, you can see document.get element by ID question. Options element, document.get element by ID options. Same with the next button, timer and the result. So now it's easy for me to navigate into any of this element and do any DOM manipulation to add, remove, edit anything in my DOM structure, right? So let's start doing that. Now for that, let me start by writing a function called load question. So this particular function I'll be invoking inside my index.js so that whenever my index.js file is getting loaded inside the index.html file over here, the load question, this particular function gets called. And once this function gets called, I'll be able to load the questions. My questions are nothing but these questions into where the part of it will go to this question element where I'll be showing the question. Another part of it will go to this options element where I'll be creating these options. Simple enough, right? That's how you should be thinking logically, step by step. Okay, so let's do that. Let us take a variable called current question and initialize it with 0. Now in the load question, let's take out a question called questions of current question. So think in this way, the questions having the random sequence of our quiz data and the current question is the first one in that particular array and I'm retrieving it and assigning in this particular variable. So it means in this queue right now, any of this quiz data is there. I don't know which one because it's random. But irrespective of whatever is there, if I do q.question, I'll get this particular question. If I do q.options, I'll get what are the options. If I do q.correct, I'll get which is the correct answer for the question. I have all the data inside this particular queue. Isn't it? It's very simple. So as I have queue and I have a question EL, so it means I can now do question EL dot text content. You guys have learned about text content, inner text, inner HTML already. Here I can say Q, I have to do Q1, Q2, Q3 like that, right? Current question is initialized with 0. So I can very well do my current question, which is initialized with 0 plus 1 That means it become Q1 right now, correct? After that, I can do a dot, and here I can print like $Q dot question, because inside Q I have one of the structure, and inside the structure I have the question. So I retrieve the question, but before that I am just showing Q1. In future, when we click on the next button, I'll be incrementing this current question by 1. So next question will automatically become Q2, and that particular next question will come and add as a text content over here. At this point in time, if I go to UI, now I'm seeing Q1, which method selects by ID. So randomly, if you notice, this particular question is now picked up as a random. Though in my quiz data, its position is the second one, but it got picked up because after I have done this random, it would have come as a first element into this questions array. And that's why when I did current questions value is 0 and picked it up, it got picked up over here. That's how I now able to print the question. As I'm able to print the question, the next thing that I will be able to do, render the options. Where the options are inside q.options, because each of these quizzes are having a property called options whose value is again an array. So if I do q.options, I'll get this array. I can iterate over it, take each of these options and render into my UI, isn't it? So let's do that. So I'll do q.options. How can I iterate over it? I have for each is the right use case for iteration. Here I'll be getting each of the option. Along with each of the option, I can also get the index of that particular option. Now each of the option I want to render inside a button. So for example, for the first option I want to create a button. For the second option I want to create a button. Third option I want to create a button, and want to add that button to this particular option list directly. So option list is nothing but this option element. So I want to add this into this option element. So first let's create a button, const btn. How do you create a button? You do document dot create element, and then you pass the element that you want to create. In this case, we are interested in creating button. So I have the button over here. Next, I can add a class to this button dynamically. How can I do that? I have something called class list we have learned. Inside that there is a method called add, and using that we can add a class. Using toggle method you can toggle a class. You know already, right? All this thing. So here I'll be adding a class called option hyphen btn, means an option button. And after this, on button itself, I will be adding a text content, and the value of the text content will be this option, correct? Because each of the option we want to show in this button. And finally, I have this option element. I want to add this button to this option element. Let's add this. For that, I'll be using the method called append child. We have learned all these things, right? Right now we are using it in this project, correct? So for each of the options, we have created a button. For each of the button, we have added a class so that we can style it later. And then as a text content, we are adding this particular option value itself so that it shows. And then I'm adding each of this button to my option element. Let's see the UI. Great. So what does DOM stands for? Document order model, document object model, document object method, direct object management. Where is it coming from? Of course, it's coming from my data. For this question, these are the options, isn't it? Now I can do a little bit better thing. The UI doesn't look great, but I have added on option button one style. So if I go to UI and then just inspect this guy, yeah, I see there's something called option button got added to each of this button. So if I now go to my CSS and can add some style for this option button. So I can add a bit of padding, a background, a bit of border radius, the color of it, the cursor, and a bit of animation, right? So if I see it now, you see it looks much better. If I just refresh, did you see that? It looks much better. Which event fires on input change? I refreshed, the value of the question got changed because the random one right now and all of its options. This is awesome. We can do little bit better. If I'm mousing over on each of these things on hover, we can actually change the style little bit so that it looks like that user is mousing over on each of this option. So those things are pretty easy. I can take this option button and I can use hover. On hover, I can give another background color. As simple as that. So now if I go back to UI, you see it's changing on hover. So great. Now, as per our use case, one more thing that we are missing. One thing is, until I select an answer, I have not selected anything. I have not clicked on anything. I should not see this next question. the next question should come only when somebody select an answer. At the first shot, the next button is over here, right? Things loading the question for the first time. The next button dot style dot display, I'll make it as none. So now if I go to UI, I won't see the next button at all. The next button will appear only when I select one of them, but I have not coded this selection at all. Now I'm clicking, but nothing is really happening. If I go to console, nothing I won't be able to see even because I have not done anything. So it means that for each of this button, I have to now add a click handler so that on clicking on this button, I can do something to store that what user have selected for this question as an answer, and I can validate whether that is the correct answer or not. So let's implement the select answer functionality now. So for each of this button click, now we have to manage the selection of answer. So let's do this. For each of this button click, let's add an event listener. Add event listener. What kind of event we're interested in? Of course, the click event, because our users will click on this button, and once they click on the button, what we are interested in calling a function called select answer, and we'll pass the index. That's the reason we have taken this index over here, like on which option the click has happened, right? On which button the click has happened, the index of. So now it's time that we start implementing this select answer. So here we define function select answer, and what it takes the index on which button we have clicked that particular information. Now you know that we still have the knowledge of what is the current quiz that we are dealing with, because we have this questions array and we can pass this current question that particular variable's value. Now we can check if the index, if it is equals to the question in hand, right? That particular question's correct answer, we have the correct answer index also, right? If you go up for this particular question, the correct answer is the 0th one, means this one. Now for each of these options we have button. This is the first button, 0th button, first index button, second index button, third index button, and this the correct one is 0. Now if I click on this first one, get element by id, it means I have clicked on the 0th index button, correct? Now I'll be checking the index on which I have clicked along with the value of the correct. If they are same, that means I have got the correct answer. If they are not same, that means I have not got the correct answer. Very simple logic. That's how you think about logic, correct? Here the logic will be, if the index on the button that I have clicked right now, if it is equals to the correct value of for this particular question, the correct answer of this question, then I have to indicate that I have selected a correct answer. To indicate that, now I do it using style. I have to now get the buttons. Inside that buttons for this particular index, I have to add a style. How can I get the buttons? This is how the DOM query comes into picture. I can get all the buttons saying buttons equals to something called document dot query selector all, and for all the buttons I have added this particular class, isn't it? So if I pass this particular class name using the dot, this is going to give me all the buttons that is having this particular class name. That means my all the options buttons. Now as I have got all the buttons, I can say from all the buttons take out the button using this index, and this is the right answer. So use the class list, add this particular class called correct. Now using the correct class, I can make the background of that button as green because this is the right answer. Else, I can take up the same thing, copy this one, put it over here. Instead of correct, just say wrong. I can now make it as red color, correct? Now, if I just put wrong, it is not enough because I am saying that, okay, this is a wrong choice. I also have to say which one was the right choice, isn't it? Because along with saying the wrong choice, that is the wrong answer, I have to also tell user what is the right answer for this question. So I have to make the right choice in the green color, and user selected choice is in the red color. That's how it is wrong. So for that to handle, I can do button, which is the right answer. Q dot correct is the right answer. I can put q dot correct over here. And now after this, I can add this particular line. I can just copy and paste. So it means if user has selected a wrong answer, additionally making that particular background as red, I am also making the correct answer background is green. Now I'm telling green, red, all these things. For that I have to write styles, isn't it? So I'll go to style.css file, and after option button, I have to write two more style. One is option button dot correct. Here I can give the background color as green, and another one is option button dot wrong, where I can give the background color of red. Okay, so that's this logic so far is great. So now we have also told that at the first shot, the next button will be disabled. But when somebody select an answer, we'll allow them to go to the next question. So the next button will be enabled. So for that purpose, I can now add next button dot style dot display is inline block. That means it will be again shown back. So this is quite good. This is really great. There is one more thing we can do though. When someone select an answer, right? When I've clicked and selected an answer, I can make all the selections, all the option selections as disable, so that once you select an option, you are seeing what is right, what is wrong, right? I don't want you to reselect again. Once you have selected something, your chance is over. You can only go to the next question and you can only take the next quiz. So to perform that, as we already have all the buttons over here, I can now do buttons dot for each. Now for each of the button, I actually don't need this parenthesis because I can write in the single line. I have a disable property and I can make this disable property is true. All right. So this is the implementation of my select answer. So when I'm clicking on any of this button in the options, I'm taking its index, and that from this index I'm matching whether it is equals to the correct answer, the correct index of from the options. If it is the case, I'm adding a correct style. So it means that it will be shown in the green color. If it is not, I'm showing in the wrong style, means red color. But I am also highlighting the correct answer with the green color. I am not allowing any other buttons to be clicked once somebody has selected an answer. And additionally, the next button should be shown so that user can navigate to the next question. So far, let's see how the UI behaves. Let me refresh. A new question came here. Which event fires on input change? Of course, change event. Let me click on it. Yes. You saw it's in the green color. And now I am not able to actually click on any of this. Nothing happening. Nothing more green, red is happening. Okay. Now let's click on next question. Nothing will happen because we have not implemented it. But we can actually test one more scenario. Let's refresh it. What does DOM stand for? I know it is document object model, but let's pretend that I don't know. Let's say direct object management. The moment I do the direct object management, it become red because it's a wrong selection, but it also shows me the document object model is the right one. Correct? So far the logic that we have written is working great. What is pending now? The pending part is the next question. If I click on next question, I should go to the next question. Let's implement that. The next question part is nothing but getting into the next index in your questionnaire. As simple as that. But before you do anything, you have to add an event listener to the next button, isn't it? So let's do that. Let's take the next button. Let's add an event listener. What kind of event we are talking about? Of course, the click event. And once the click event happen, I am writing an arrow function so that inside this arrow function, I can take care of the thing. What are the things you have to do? You have a variable which is maintaining the current questions. Now, current questions is initialized with 0. The moment somebody click on it, the next thing that you would be interested in doing is to increment these current questions by 1 so that you move to the next question. Now you will check whether my current question is less than the total number of questions that I have with all the quizzes. If that is the case, then you will load the question again. If that is not the case, it means that you have exhausted all your quiz. You will do something like showing the result. So show the result, which will implement in a while. But let's see this part of it. I'm incrementing. First time the current question was 0. Now I'm incrementing the current question by 1. So current question is 1. Is 1 less than 3? I have 3 questions. Yes, 1 less than 3. So load the question again. Load the question means this particular method I am calling again. Now current question become 1. So it means it is going to take out the next question. Rest of the things are exactly same, right? Because now it is 1, it will be 1 plus 1 q2, and that particular question's answer. This is how we write code, right? We have written it, now it will be just be reused, correct? So we have written this load question thing once. Now the load question is driven by this current question index. This was initialized to 0. Now for each click of the next button, we are just incrementing it by 1 and calling the load question so that the next question get picked up from our data structure and our UI gets refreshed with all this data. Let's see what happened to the UI. So this is our first question. Which event fires on the input change? Of course, change event. Now, if I go to the next question, it's changed. Which method selects by ID? But the problem here is these particular options have never got deleted. The old options have never got deleted. The new options got appended to this one. This is wrong. Let's fix that. To fix that, in your load questions, you have this option element, right? Where you are adding back the options. So taking that option element dot inner HTML, I can just set it to blank. That means it will be refreshed every time and it will be cleared before the new things get added. Now, if I go back to the UI, which event fires on input change? Of course, change event. If I do next question, beautiful. Which method selects by ID? Get element by ID, get selector all. Okay, let's say get element, wrong. Get element by ID. Next question, last question. What does DOM stands for? Document object model. Next question, it doesn't do anything. What we are supposed to do in the next question, once you reach the last one, we are supposed to say that, hey boss, you have reached the last question. This is your result. You have got this many marks. So now we have to deal with something called score. Let's do that. Now to deal with score, along with current questions, let us initialize the score, a particular variable with 0, and we'll accumulate the score value into this variable as and when user give a right answer. So what is the place where we have decided that user has given a right answer? The place is inside the select answer function. Whenever this particular if block satisfies, it means that user have given a right answer, isn't it? So here we can do score plus plus. So each time there is a correct answer, score become higher. Now this particular situation where you are reaching the last question and after that you are clicking on the next button, you are supposed to show the result, right? So let us now implement show result, this particular functionality. Now, as it is a functionality, we have to definitely write a function for it. So let's write a function show result, and here inside we'll be taking care of a bunch of things. So first thing is we will be storing the highest score, the highest quiz score in the browser's local storage. And every time somebody complete the quiz, we are not only going to show that particular person's score, but we're also going to show, hey, taking this quiz, somebody have already scored this much, which is higher. Now, if there is a new high score, in that case, we will remove the old high score from the local storage and add back the new high score. So these are the things that we are going to do. Now for that, let's do const high score equals to check what is the highest score now there in my local storage. Now to access local storage, you have an API called local storage. From that, you can retrieve any element value using something called get item. And here you can pass a key using which as a key value pair you can store certain element, you can store certain values into your browser's local storage, and this particular key name is based on your use case. You can give any name. In our case it is quiz highest score, so we are saying quiz high score. Okay, if I don't find anything, in that case I'll say the value is 0, high score value is 0. Now I will check whether it is a new high score or not. Okay, so const is new, I'll take a variable, and whatever the current score, if this is more than the existing high score, then the current score is the new high score. Correct? Very simple. Now if it is a new high score, I have to add it back to my local storage. So I'll say if is new. In that case I'll say local storage dot set item, as we have done get item before, set item, take the same key that we have used over here and then pass the value of it. The value will be now the score, because this is the score which is higher than the currently stored high score. So now the high score storing the comparison, this particular logic is simple. Now the last thing that we need to show over here is the result. Now for showing the result, we already have this div id result over here, isn't it? Now we can actually utilize it because we have taken this element at the top, result el. So we can do result el dot inner html equals to, we can say h2 hooray quiz completed, close the h2, then we can say you have scored, print the score over here. Out of our total questions are questions dot length questions in the p2, then we can say highest score. What is the highest score? Of course, whatever the highest between, we can do math dot max of score and the high score. Whatever the high score, we can print over here. And we can also write logic, something like this, if you want to make it a little more complex. If there is a new high score, in case it is new, then you can say people who are working on React, they will be very used to this kind of coding. But for JavaScript, for the guys who are new to JavaScript, you can see like using the template literals, we can organize the output in a way that will be rendered on the UI finally, right? And we are avoiding all this plus sign to concatenate things. So you can say, hey, new high score. Otherwise, we won't say anything. So let's see how this works. When we're showing the result, the last question, clicking the next button, I'm doing all this calculation and then finally showing this particular result. Let's see how it appears. What does DOM stands for? Document Object Model. Next question. Which method selects by ID? Get element by ID. Next question. Which event fire on input chain? Change. Next question. Wow. Hooray! Quiz completed. Excellent. You have scored 3 out of 3 questions. Highest score is 3. Now, if I go ahead and inspect, and if you come inside the applications tab, here for localhost, you will be able to see this particular local storage item we have added, right? Quiz high score has got over here. So things are working. Things are working great. But when you're on the last question, you don't have anything to do with this next question, isn't it? So it means that next question can be hidden when you are at the last question. Also, along with that, we can show a way to restart. Right now, there is no way to restart this game, isn't it? So let's do those two changes. So first is when you are showing the result, maybe the first thing that you can do is next button dot style dot display. You can make it as none so that the next button won't be shown. And then over here, you can add one more button saying restart quiz, and you are doing on click equals to location dot reload. Basically, the entire page get reloaded. Okay, so now let's go ahead and test thing out. DOM stands for document object model. Next question. Guess element by ID. Next question. This one, let me give a wrong answer. Submit. See, it's showing change is the right answer. Next question. You see what happened? Hooray, quiz completed. You have scored 2 out of 3. High score is still 3 because last time the high score was 3. So now my matching is also happening correctly. Everything is right. Everything is happening correctly. Now if I do restart quiz, the page get reloaded and everything seems to work from the beginning as well. So far showing the result, taking the quiz, the highest score, tallying it with the highest score, everything is working. We have not done anything for the timer. So that how the timer logic is going to work. To make the timer logic work, we have to start a timer from 15 and it will just count down 15, 14, 13 like that. The moment it expires means it becomes 0. I will be able to select the right question automatically and then give the option for next. That means user cannot really select this particular question for which the timer has been expired. At the same time, as system is selecting the right answer, the credit should not go to the user. User should not score for the question that system has given the right answer. User has not selected the right answer, right? So these two logic we have to perform now. Let's focus on that. Now, when this timer should start countdown, the moment your UI is loaded, the moment the JavaScript is loaded, the moment your questions are loaded, your countdown should start, right? So load question is the place where we have to start doing some countdown. Now for doing this, I'll be using a web API called setInterval, JavaScript's web API called setInterval. What setInterval does, setInterval can execute a function in a specified time interval. So it means that if I want, after 1 second, it has to execute some function, the setInterval will be doing it. And while doing that, it is also going to return me something called a timer, a particular ID of that particular timer, so that if I need to clear the timer any point in time, I can do it. If I don't clear the timer, at the background on the browser, the timer will keep running even when you have moved out from that particular screen. So it is always advisable that if you are using set interval or set timeout, such kind of web APIs which deals with this kind of ticking, you always clear those interval or clear those timer. So now to accomplish that, let us take our timer. This will be our set interval timer. Okay, we'll be utilizing it, and we are saying that we are starting with 15 seconds, right? So let's do late time left. Now coming to the load questions, this is the first entry point of the application from the JavaScript point of view. We have to start the countdown. Okay, but before you even starting the countdown, I always advise that you start writing the code of clearing the interval. Okay, always start with that so that you never forget. So first you clear the interval, and this is nothing but the timer that we have taken, and after that you now create the new interval. Okay, so how you create the new interval? You do timer equals to set interval. Here you pass a function. We'll pass a countdown function which will reduce the timer value by 1 in every 1000 milliseconds, which is like 1 second. So every 1 second this countdown method will be called. We get to the countdown method in a while, but before that, this time left, let us initialize with 15, because that's what the 15 seconds it will come, right? Now this now this countdown is something that we need to implement. So let's go down, and over here let's write function countdown. What we'll do inside the countdown, we have started time left with 15 seconds, the value 15. So first thing is like every second we have to reduce the value by 1. So double minus is equals to time left equals to time left minus 1. Now after that we will check if time left is 0. That means I have exhausted all the 15 seconds. If that is the thing happening, first thing to do, clear the interval always, because I don't need the interval now because I've already hit the 0. And then I have to automatically set the answer to true, correct? So I already have a select answer method, right? That is for manual selection of the answer for a question. Now I have to do it automatically. Manually is okay. I was getting the index on which button user was clicking. But if I have to do automatically, how can I do it? Can I do it? Yes, I can do it. You remember I have something called questions. You remember I have an index called current question. So if I do questions of current questions, I get the question. From there, do you remember I have something called correct? So that is the index. So that means if I pass this particular corrects index, the select answer will automatically select the thing. Correct? It is done. Now, one small thing we have to do along with it is like, if you go to UI right now, the UI always says 15. It has to reduce every second. Actually started reducing, but it is not showing 15, 14, 13 like that, right? So see, it's automatically after 15 seconds, it's actually selected. I didn't select. It selected the answer. So there are two things that we have to take care now. Reduce this from 15, 14, 13, all these things. And right now, though it is selected, and if I go to next question, if I now wait, or if I do get element, I select. If I go this one, select something else. If I do next question, it will say I scored 1 out of 3. 2, I have given wrong answer. 1 was auto selected. But he has scored become 1. I should not be getting score for the 1 got auto selected. I should have got 0. Correct? So that part also I have to take care. So first, let me update this timer at the top. Let's create a very simple function called update timer. Very, very simple function. This is what update timer does. We have a timer element we have taken at the top. This is the timer element where the timer we are showing in yellow color. In the timer element text content, I am just showing the time left. What is time left? The time left which I am decrementing. When I have to show every time I'm reducing the time, I have to call this update timer. Or, and whenever I have this load method, initially also, I'll do update timer. So now update timer is set with 15, but with every countdown, this time left is reducing and update timer will be updated. So let's see if that is happening. Refresh 15, 14, happening, 13. You see this? You can write seconds also after this. Now, once it reaches 0, you will see automatically it gets selected. I'll move my cursor away. So you can have 3, 2, 1, 0. Yes, document object model got selected. And if I go to next question, if I wait, again, same thing will happen. Or if I select something, wrong answer. Next question, again, countdown. If I do get element by ID, next question, it will say 2. But 1, I have given the right answer. Another one got auto-selected. So let's fix that also. For the auto-selected one, I should not get scored. So for that purpose, the scoring thing is happening inside this select answer. Select answer is where? Here. So select answer is taking care of this scoring thing. Now to take care of this, I can pass one more parameter to it called should score. This is pure logic, right? Now, when automatically getting selected, I should not score it. When somebody is selecting by clicking on it, I should score it. So it means that if the should score is true, only in that case you score it. Otherwise, you don't score it. Now, the select answer is getting called from two places. One place is when the countdown is happening, means automatically getting selected. So in this case, you should not score, so you will pass false. And in another case, where you are clicking on it and you are actively manually selecting an answer, in this case, it should be true. Correct? Now, select answer is aware where exactly it is coming from. If it is coming from the click of it, user is manually clicking, then it makes sense. It should score. So score will be incremented. If it is automatically happening as part of the countdown, should score will be false. So that means the score won't be incremented, right? Simple logic. Now let's test this end to end. Okay, what does document stands for? Now I won't be selecting this. 11, 10, bear with me, 9, 8, taking your precious 7 seconds moment, 6, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, select it. Okay, now I'll go to the next one. Now for the next one, I select get element by ID. Okay, so one selected by system, one selected by me. Now if I go to next question, this one I'll do a wrong thing. So one wrong, one selected by system, one selected by me. So the score I should get only one because one I selected correctly. So you have scored 1 out of 3. So I have fixed that bug as well. Another thing you can improve, let's restart the quiz. Whether you manually select or automatically select something, say I select this one, the counter is still going on. You might want to clear the counter, right? So to do that, you have the select answer, right? You know how to clear the counter. Clear interval, just pass the timer. That's it, one line of code. Your job is done. Now, the moment you select a particular thing, say document object model, the moment I select, your timer is halted. That means within 2 seconds, you have given this answer. Okay. Now, if you go to next question, 15, 14, get element by ID, get selected all, 12 had got. You have done the answer in 3 seconds. Now, if I go change, in 1 second, you have given the answer. So you have scored 1 out of 3. End to end things are working. So I hope you learned a lot of things by doing this project and you like doing this project. We have utilized whatever we have learned from DOM. We have utilized things correctly. We have done a lot of problem solving, logic building along with it. Now there are few things I want you to take care. This is really not the right way of restarting the game. I have reloaded the entire page with the location.reload. Some of you would have already failed when I was typing this. Now, what I want you to do to solve this in the right way, you of course need a button over here, but it should not do location.reload, which means the entire page reload. Rather, I want you to take advantage of this load question itself because this is the one which loading the question from the beginning, provided we are setting the right value of this current question index. If you set it with 0, it will always start from the beginning of it. So can you do something to modify this particular code so that we don't refresh the entire page, rather take advantage of the existing method to do it much more cleaner way. So this is one task for it. But your task is not just ending over here. You have an entire project to take care of. Okay guys, all the code that we have written so far is inside the day 21 folder. You can go over there and you can find all this code that we have written so far. And then you have a project assignment now. As we are ending this module, I have done a project. Now you also have to do a project. So please take your time to do this project. The project assignment, just like the previous project where we have built an expense tracker, I have asked you to build. Now I'm asking you to build something called a recipe finder. And this is your project. Let me explain this to you. So the assignment is a recipe finder app. Build a recipe finder web app using JavaScript DOM skills that we have learned to display recipes based on the search keyword. This project will not use any external API. We will use the dummy data, just like we have used in the current project, the quiz project. So to do, use JavaScript DOM to display a list of recipes dynamically, filter recipes by title based on user search input. No framework, no React, no Vue, etc. Only HTML, CSS, and vanilla JavaScript. Dummy data is provided. This is the data. I have provided an array of recipes. I have few recipes. You can change them. You can add anything, but make sure the structure remains same. It has a title, ingredient, and the instructions. Now expectation, a search bar at the top. As the user types, filter recipes by its title, case insensitive. If no recipe found, show no recipe found message. Clicking on recipe title should expand and collapse. We have seen this in our previous videos how to do this expand, collapse, show, hide thing. So you know how to do this to show the ingredients and the instructions. Add a clear button to reset the search. Add a smooth slide animation when things open and close. Save the last search term in local storage and pre-fill the input when the page reloads. So everything that you have seen in the project, everything that you learned in the DOM module, put that in practice and please do this. What you have to deliver, create a project on your GitHub that has all the code and a clear readme so that I can run it. Post the project link, basically the GitHub link, on Discord's task assignment channel of 40 Days of JavaScript. If you can deploy this on Vercel, Netlify, Render anywhere, you can also share that particular link with us. We'll play around with your project. All right. I hope you find it interesting. So, my dear friends and students, this is what it is. All the videos that we have done on DOM, including this project video, is of very high quality. We have went really in depth, understood the overall DOM stuff, the advanced tips and tricks, and finally got more confidence by doing this project. And even to make the confidence higher, there is an assignment for you. You must be doing that before you start doing the next module. What is the next module? So the next module is a big one. It's about the asynchronous JavaScript and debugging asynchronous code. So we're getting started with callbacks, callback help problem. Then we'll be getting into promises with then, catch, and all this stuff. Then we'll be talking about async await, the modern way of writing JavaScript code for the asynchronous programming. We'll be talking about fetch API in depth, working with the JSON file, calling the APIs, and all these things. And then my favorite video, deep dive into JavaScript, event loop, the micro task, macro task, all this thing. And we'll end that module with the common mistakes. Not really ending. After that, there will be a project as we have done today for DOM, and then will be assignment for you. So if you are with 40 days of JavaScript, if you have patience to learn with me, if you have the patience to be master in JavaScript, please be with it. You will really learn some awesome stuff. Don't forget to practice whatever I am teaching. You have to practice to master on it. So please practice. We'll be coming back soon with the next module, module 4, the video number 22, where we're going to talk about callbacks, callback hell, the actual problem. Thank you very much for being with tapaScript.